The second segment of the show, the final segment of the show for today, we're talking to a United States colored trooper with the 13th Regiment, who's given us some information in reference to the election of President Abraham Lincoln and how he reacted to that election. Let's pick up at that, Trooper Radcliffe.
Yes, sir. Well, as I was saying, Mr. Lincoln saw that the key to keeping the nation together was to put down this rebellion, as it were. So the next day, I remember he called for 75,000 volunteers. And through the grapevine, we heard that colored men in Michigan, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Ohio, New Hampshire, they commenced to drilling, training themselves, organizing themselves to fight for the old flag. Then they were told to go home. They wouldn't be needed. This was a white man's war. If we got to do anything at all, it involved a pick and a shovel. But that being said, we still, amongst ourselves, mobilized. Mr. Frederick Douglass said it. How you gonna win the war with your white hand without your strong black hand? And he told that to Mr. Lincoln. Well, Mr. Lincoln was a politician, and he was afraid of making certain people angry to leave the Union to go to the Confederacy. So, being a politician, he straddled that fine line. You know, being a Canadian citizen now, I'm looking at this like, I am so glad I'm not down there, because I know what's happening. I didn't have an attack of selfishness, but I sat with my daddy one night on his porch, and we were drinking iced tea and talking about the situation. And he brought to my attention, he said, Lord, I'm thinking very much about our relatives, our kinfolk and relations. They're in Virginia, the ones in South Carolina, your grandparents we left in Tennessee, your great aunts, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen to them. And I studied on that for a minute, and I remembered how my grandparents played with me while they were in the fields. I remember how my great aunt used to drag me around with her when she was doing the Mrs. Wash. I go in the big house and sit with her, and she sang Negro spirituals. And I went home and I sat and I looked at my wife. She didn't know I was looking at her, how beautiful she was. And my 3 beautiful children, my 2 sons and my daughter. And I said, Lord, I've got it made. We made it, you brought us out. And then I had to ask myself, am I gonna be selfish enough to stay here with all what you gave me and forget about where I come from? It didn't take long. I went outside and I stood looking out over the river and the canal, and I watched the little boats going down through there, and out of nowhere, one streak of lightning came from the water, went up. I took that to mean from south to north. That streak of lightning was all I saw. And then I knew what I had to do. I talked to my wife. I had to talk to my children. I told them I got to leave them for a little while. I got to go see about Grandma and Papa. I'll be gone for a minute, but I'll be back. So myself, 7 of my friends, all good, strong black men, they left the businesses and their families. We jumped on a train from St. Catharines, went back south, crossed back into the United States. We met a man named William Steele, prominent black man, Philadelphia. He gathered up about 25 of us, and we went to a place called Reedville, Massachusetts. I enlisted. This was right after Mr. Lincoln had signed Emancipation. He didn't free all the slaves, just the ones in the states that were fighting. He had to watch Maryland, Delaware, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Tennessee had went to the Confederacy, so he had to hold those three, Kentucky, Delaware, and Maryland, because they surrounded Washington, D.C. So he was needing people. They had lost the Battle of Bull Run. They got the clocks clean in a place called Antietam, Maryland. They could have won, the war would have been over, but they had bad generals, so they lost. Black men had already been in combat out in Kansas, an outfit called the 1st Kansas Colored Volunteers. They were fighting the Confederates in 1861. We heard about them. We joined a unit, the first one raised in the North, put together by Frederick Douglass, Governor John Andrew, 54th Massachusetts Volunteers. We weren't relegated to shovels and picks like they wanted. We went down to South Carolina,